Democratic gubernatorial hopeful Zephyr Teachout, she fought to get her name on the ballot for next Tuesday's primaries. But does a political newcomer truly have what it takes if, in fact, she did the impossible and actually became governor? Well, Teachout, she spoke with Andrew yesterday about an article in the Times which argues that for all of her visions, she's still not up to the job.
I want to go back to the New York Times non-endorsement of either you or Governor Cuomo. They basically said they weren't going to endorse you because they didn't think you were qualified for the job. Are they wrong?
Yeah, I obviously disagree with the New York Times, but I've also had experiences that are quite useful for being governor. I've been a classroom teacher. I've spent time in jails and prisons as a death penalty lawyer, and I have fought, as the national director of the Sunlight Foundation for exactly the kinds of reforms that Albany most needs.
Now, if Teachout were elected, and by the way, she's up to 30% in some internal polls here, so I'm not saying she's going to win by any chance here before Dominic even jumps at me, but this is, okay, anyway. She wouldn't be alone here. You want to talk the man on your screen there? Former wrestler turned Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura. I love how he rappelled down the Capitol on his first day. He actually got in the political arena with zero political experience. And what about the Terminator? Arnold Schwarzenegger, governor of California between 2003 to 2011, and again, Zippo in terms of elected experience before that. And of course, there's the president himself, who was a little-known state senator from Illinois before he was catapulted into the national spotlight in the race for president. And some still maintain that his lack of executive political experience is hurting him and could in fact prevent him from having the legacy many people thought 6 years ago he was destined to have. Now, the New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd spoke to this in many ways, saying that unfortunately, he still has not learned how to govern. Going on to say, how is it that the president won the argument on gun safety with the public and lost the vote in the Senate? It's because he doesn't know how to work the system. And it's clear now that he doesn't want to learn or to even hire some clever people who can tell him how to do it or do it for him. And before we debate about what he could or couldn't do with an intractable Congress and an oppositional Republican Party and all these things, I'll agree with the three of you before we debate. How much value is it really to have?
Zero.
Come on.
Everybody comes to these jobs with assets and liabilities. Sometimes the liabilities outweigh the assets. We can disagree about that. But the notion that it is that you are required to have a certain time in the government before you take over a job like that is nonsense.
Your first year on the job in the assembly versus your last year on the job. Are you telling me that you were not a more effective lawmaker with the benefit of experience?
I was a more effective lawmaker with the benefit of experience.
So?
That doesn't tell you that I was incompetent to serve when I first got there.
I didn't say you were incompetent, but the point is, for as much as and we can't say some of the words that some of the members of the legislature, not just Republicans, have feelings of the current governor in Albany, Andrew Cuomo, it is undeniable, whether through arm twisting or arm breaking, he gets things done, and it has to be attributed in part to he knows how the system works.
No, it's attributed to the part that he breaks arms. Now, if that is your measure of what it takes to be an effective governor, Zephyr Teachout is unqualified. There may be other models of leadership that would work as well or close to as well, or wouldn't get some things done, but might get other things done.
But Richard, is it a risk then to potentially put a Zephyr Teachout in that spot?
Sure, it's a risk. And it's a risk to re-elect a guy if you think he's incompetent or stupid. And I'm not saying that's my view of the governor. What I am saying is that this is a choice between two people with strengths and weaknesses. Her experience is a legitimate factor to weigh, but to say it's disqualifying, per se.
Not disqualifying,
but
it is, and they did. But to me, it's more than just a calculated risk. And I put this way, Dominic. You strongly feel, and I happen to agree with you, that our current president has encountered challenges that no predecessor did in terms of opposition from jump. However, the resignation that almost that you can see it through the camera that he's tired and he doesn't want to play the game, to me is frustrating for someone who believes the gifts that he could bring to the office. And you know what? You do look at an LBJ at a different time. And you know what? He lived for it. He loved it. I mean, he would go to the Hill and knock on the guy's office. He'd threaten. He'd cajole. He'd probably do worse. Okay. But my point is, that's part of the job, isn't it?
Okay, but with LBJ, wasn't he still one of the good old boys?
My point is,
doesn't
it's
matter?
part of the
That
job.
doesn't-
You gotta love this stuff. If you don't love it and you don't know how to play the game, and it is a game, okay, then you're not as
I'll
good
grant
as you
you,
will be.
Richard, I'll grant you this much. Obama is
Look
not
at
good.
Shelley Silver, for crying out loud, right?
Well, he's a
Shelley
perfect
knows how to
example of
play the
everything.
game.
He's a perfect example from some of everything that's wrong with Albany.
And that would be a mistake, too.
That would be a mistake?
That would be a mistake.
Okay, well,
He gets the, you know, you're longing for the days of Richard Nixon, Lyndon Johnson, and muscular Andrew Cuomo. There may be other models of successful leadership in society than guys who walk around with baseball bats.
Aren't you tired of where we are right now? Where, I'm sorry, fair or not, there is one president, there is one big boy or girl in front of the room here who's got to set an agenda, and you can't say it's too hard. My point is, somebody has to come in that understands how politics works, and you have to play the game even if you find it beneath you. And to me, as an electorate here, I'm frustrated by this. And I think that's going to factor into at least my decision for who I'll vote for or who's the next president. Who can play the game, and it is a game, the right way. Do you disagree with me?
You know, I find it odd that the frustration with the game is leading you to search for a candidate who just plays the game more muscularly or stronger,
Effectively.
a stronger way.
Effectively.
But you don't know whether a softer touch is more effective if it's applied correctly. You don't know if somebody who can actually make deals behind the scenes in a quieter, less confrontational mode. Maybe that's the antidote
In
for the
New
lack
York,
of
Andrew?
for the lack
In
of progress
a
that we have so
softer
far.
tone in New York?
No. But we
okay,
were talking
okay,
we were
okay.
talking nationally. In New York, I don't know. I don't know if the
in
same
New
approach
York,
might work.
he may not be comfortable with this. But let me say it before you disagree. Let me just say this before you disagree, Mr. Brodsky. In New York, you need an Andrew Cuomo to whip these lawmakers in line. He doesn't like when I say half of them are corrupt and half of them are incompetent.
That's just nonsense.
No, it's
bring
the
back,
truth.
bring
And
back
I believe,
Elliot Spitzer.
And I believe the prosecutor. We
He knew
needed
how to play the game.
somebody like Elliot Spitzer, except for room number 9,
You know,
client number
let's
9,
clean
and
out
you
this-
know.
Let's clean out this den of right-wing authoritarian
You know,
journalists.
but you don't
know what you're talking
journalists.
about.
Okay, but wait. Who made the point that I'm making before me? Who said the same thing?
Richard Nixon.
No.
Elliot Spitzer.
Who said throw the bums out? Who said that? Ed Koch. Ed Koch made the same argument that I'm making. So he doesn't know what he's talking about
Ed
either?
Koch did not make the argument.
Oh,
that
yes, he did. And he used harsher language than I'm
went
using.
against individuals. And that's
No,
fine.
Ed Koch said you need to have a lot of media in Albany and you need to throw all the bums out. That's what he said.
And lost the primary to a guy who spoke gently, Mario Cuomo. Can you believe it?
Yeah, right. But
Can
it
you
was a
believe it?
nasty campaign.
And that Ed Koch
Vote
lost.
for Cuomo and,
Yeah.
the rest of it that went with it.
There are alternate models, and the tough guy model works in ways that we see, and we kind of like it.
Oh,
And
you're so full of it, Richard.
Thank you.
You would do the same thing
Thank you.
yourself.
Thank you.
If I had a camera, I guarantee you, in some of your committee hearings, right, you would do everything but throw the kitchen sink at these guys. You work to get a deal done.
I wanna
Everyone can
hear this.
pontificate.
Right.
I really
Come
wanna
on.
hear this.
Sometimes, but not all the time. Sometimes you have to know when to step back and let other people step. You can lead from behind. Look, we're out of Afghanistan. We're out of Iraq. We're not in Syria. What did he do wrong?
Whoa. By
Richard,
his own admission, we're not going to go down ISIS,
Richard,
are we?
I love Richard Brodsky. If you don't believe that he would throw the kitchen sink at you, why don't you call the New York Yankees and ask them how they like
I
dealing
didn't
with
say I
this
would
guy?
do it. I said you do it
Why don't you ask the
occasionally.
Steinbrenner family how they like
I
challenging
want
this
to
guy?
see him in that strapless black dress.
I got it in the dressing room.
Moving on. Justice Department preparing to launch a probe into allegations of police misconduct surrounding cops in Ferguson, Missouri, and closer to home. We have a rally for justice was held this morning. In fact, one of our friends here, Mayo Bartlett, at the very front of it, surrounding police misconduct cases in New York. We're going to have a full report on that after this.